Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, July 1st. We've made it to another month. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. Still basking. For those of you watching, we'll make sure we start the month on a winning note, as we are the defending champs. Ironically, this podcast covers your national champions of football. Got a great show for you today. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter, are back. Where else would they be? And we're going to go over all the Cruton information that's fit to talk about. Some of you people are hanging from the rafters, as you are wont to do at this time of year. Others tend to adhere to the R word that we love around here, rational. But there he is, my guy. But if you need to stay rational, or at least a little bit chilled, guess what I got for you? Cornbread hemp. America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy. Their mission is to improve your quality of life with the highest quality hemp. Keep in mind, fully 100% legal. You got a healthy happy hour, natural and healthier way to experience the carefree moment. Those of you trying to put down the sauce, this can occasionally fill the void, and it's America's first USDA organic THC edible, proudly grown in Kentucky. 10 milligrams per gummy, no harsh solvents, no synthetic ingredients, Farm Bill compliant and legal for adults over 21. And like I say routinely, they would not continue to advertise if you did not continue to purchase. So we appreciate that. To that end, special offer for BM5 listeners. You get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. They've got seltzers and stuff now, so they are getting their stuff together, and we appreciate that. Speaking of having your stuff together, the Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter from Porter's Pub, coming to you with a jersey in the background. We appreciate it. Gentlemen, hope you are doing well. We are going to attempt to bring some levity or some calm to the situation, as I see many are a little cranky with the current process. Not us, but we're going to go over some of the dudes we've added and another dude we may add shortly. So first guy I'd like to talk about, Cam Bickl from IMG. Spent some time in Malvern, PA. Spent some time out in California at Santa Margarita. Ironically, we'll get into that. He would have played against a possible future Buckeye week 1 had he stayed there, but he's at IMG. He is a defensive tackle. Bill, what I found interesting is he was very specific in what he was looking for. He did not want to be classified as the classic one technique. I think as I've started to break this down, a 3 technique at Ohio State could be a 1 technique at another school if you're not quite as big. And it was clear my guy did not want to do that. So, Bill, can you bring us through the recruitment of Cam Bickl? You were on top of it, and then where you see them going from here, and then the Grand Poobah will give us a look at him in action.
Yeah, he's 6'2", 305 pounds. So those out there, and they are numerous that have wanted Ohio State to get the big guy in the middle. He's that guy. He may not be the only one, because I still like Ohio State's chances down the road of flipping Jameer Perez from Florida. And his final announcement, I'll remind people, is not until August 22nd, at the beginning of the high school football season. Kind of hard to believe. We're talking about August 22nd, and that is the beginning of the football season, regular season in Ohio. But going back to Bickl, he, like you said, he's been around a lot for sure. He is now at IMG, so he's going to play against, again, very good competition his senior season. And he picked Ohio State over Penn State, Florida State, Maryland. Those were his official visits. beating Penn State is always a good thing for Ohio State. And Florida State at one point felt pretty good about him. But in the end, it's Larry Johnson and Ohio State that wins out. With his addition and with the guy we're going to probably talk about next, Demarion Simeon, and potentially with Jir Brown, I think Ohio State has filled their interior defensive line needs well. You mentioned he is not a one technique. I consider Bickl as a kind of a 1 to 3 technique guy. I think he can play in there. I know he can play in there. And the other one, Demarion Simeon, more of a 3 technique and maybe out a little bit even further. But Bickl, I consider more of a run stopper. Simeon, a dual guy, run stopper, and can rush the passer.
Marcus, want to take over for me?
Yeah, Bill did a pretty good job of, pegging these guys for what we see them at the next level. When I watch Bickl, I think the same thing, more one technique, but he's got some quickness and he's got some good feet. So that makes people probably think he could do 3 technique. But I got news for you. You need good feet like that on the inside. We're checking out his sophomore highlights. The IMG had him as no video for last year. I don't know if they have it as hidden away or something, but you've seen him at San Margarita, I believe is the high school. You could see how he sheds blocks very easily. He can throw guys off, eat up double teams. So the very active feet will give you a 3 technique feel, but that type of power, that punch he has, will give you that inside guard to guard run presence. But you see burst, you see those things that, kind of stand out. And I know kids want to be thought of as defensive ends because that's more sacks, and more sacks brings more glory. And I don't know how much more of this Dan's going to let us watch here before he pulls the plug.
Sorry, I was getting intoxicated as I want to do. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I know they want to be tight ends want to be receivers, fullbacks want to be tailbacks, and one techniques want to be 3 techniques because 3 techniques are thought of as better pass rushers. But this is a 1 technique that he can get some pass rush. He's got a first step, or if he gets you split the body in half, and if he gets half your shoulder and gets that rip in you, he's going to collapse the pocket inside. So I compare him like J.J. Perez in Ohio, who's better. J.J. Perez is pure run stop. He's probably better at a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 2. You'd probably want J.J. Perez out there. You'd probably want both of them out there at 1 and 3 on that type of short yardage.
Yep.
And package them like that and get as much beef out there. But I see them as a little bit different because the feet are much better for Cameron Bickl.
They're similar in combination. I think they would be. When we talk about our guy here, to maybe some guys we've seen in the past. So when we talk about Demarion Simeon, Bill, I think I'm biased. He's a little bit underrated based on what I have seen. He comes from the Jersey Shore, basically, which is good football. I don't think it's the best in New Jersey, which I don't know. Bergen Catholic and up North Jersey, those Catholic schools are the ones I tend to look at for that. But if you watch his tape and what Mark said about him, I'll give the comparison on Draymond Jones. I thought that was pretty good. And we mentioned that Draymond Jones has made, by end of the season, $50 million playing football. So it's a good job if you can get it. Ignatius grad, doing well. Your thoughts on Simeon, Bill? I got a feeling this guy was a little higher up the Ohio State wish list than maybe some may think.
Yeah, you mentioned that he's, in your opinion, a bit underrated. Well, the most important opinion of all, as far as the Buckeyes are concerned, is Ohio State's opinion. And he would be, according to what the rankings have, according to Ohio State, very underrated. They had him as a top target, a top of the board target type guy. And if you want any further, if you need any further proof, take a look at his Final Four. Take a look at his official visits. You got Ohio State, you got Texas, you got Penn State, you got Michigan. So taking out that school up north, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, those are teams that all went very far in the college playoffs and won of course, ultimately won it. And those are the schools that wanted Simeon, and they did all want him. And always, again, a good thing is beating Michigan and Penn State for top recruits. That was a big win. Absolutely a big win for Ohio State.
Of course, that was last Friday. We had that up over the weekend. If you see his size, some would think he's a tweener. Mark, there was a time when tweener was a bad word. Now it's considered versatility.
Yeah, so just like we just talked, here's a 3 technique. You're going to see him out at defensive end on this clip right here.
And there we go.
Yeah, that quickness across the face. And, it's the bump down theory. He could play defensive end, but I think he could dominate guards a lot more with that quickness than maybe a long tackle. So the win percentage inside here is just ridiculous. I actually, in my evaluation, questioned the competition. He blows by so many of these kids. You see the football IQ. So, when you watch these guys back to back, which I love to do, you see the comparison in feet and speed and get off and how these guys profile differently, and they're not the same body. So, yeah, definitely more rockets in the shoes out of this guy. I mean, I don't know if I could pick one over the other, but I love when guys have this type of get off. That just spells so much trouble for an offensive lineman when someone's blowing gaps on you all day.
That's what jumps. If I were going to say what jumps out between the two of them, even Bickl, when they get going, they got some, like their thighs are in motion. These are not sedentary dudes. These are athletes wearing some extra weight.
We should probably, I'm going to do this while you're talking, pull up JJ Perez and watch the difference in speed while we're doing this little exercise here at Bucknuts.
But also that the versatility or the different body types, that's what the defensive line was this past year. You know what I'm saying? Tyreek Williams and Hamilton don't have the same body types. Jack and JT didn't either. I think we've all been waiting for it. And with, big ups to my guy in the sky, Dwayne Long. We have been looking for the 330 pounders for so long. There are just not as many of them north of the Mason-Dixon line. We can go into a deep, dark talk on why, because I don't have the answer, but I just felt like we were always trying to get some 335 pound guy out of Louisiana. And thank gosh, he's now possibly in the pipeline, verbally committed to Florida, but we're all feeling pretty good about it. So you can do the comparison here.
We'll watch this and, I'll kind of talk about, we talk about how you build your receiver room. You got a couple 5'9" guys that can go like hell, and you put them in the slot. You got a 6'4" guy for 50-50 balls. You got a slot receiver that goes back and forth in motion. You build your defensive line, just like Dan was saying. You have different tools in the tool belt. You're like Batman and Robin. You're sending different pairs of guys out there. Sometimes you're sending out 3 defensive tackles. JJ Perez, you can see that he doesn't have the explosiveness, but the amount of power and load he creates, where Tony Siragusa, Ted Washington, these big-time defensive linemen in the NFL come from this mold. People are like, oh, he's 360 pounds. He needs to lose weight. I wouldn't care if he was 380. He's only going to be out there for a couple of plays at a time, and he serves such a purpose. Now, it doesn't become counterproductive how, heavy he gets, but yeah, I think you need the utility belt theory where, to stop a short yardage play, you need a certain type of player. And in days of, the old, you had 4 defensive linemen, 2 ends and 2 tackles. They never came off the field and they had to do it all. Now you have sub packages and you have sub packages upon sub packages.
Bill, there's a general fear that Ohio State is not recruiting at the level it needs to on the defensive line. Carter Meadows went to Michigan. That's the most recent one. There's questions about Deuce Gerald, who's more of a defensive tackle type. What is your vibe on recruiting of the defensive line? I'm not going to give in to my need to talk about how Larry Johnson has been negatively recruited for X number of years, and everybody doing that has fallen by the wayside, and Larry's got 2 titles, but I was told that's no longer relevant somehow. Bill, is the sky falling?
No, it's not falling. I mean, they obviously haven't gotten everyone they wanted. They wanted Carter Meadows. There's no doubt about that. They got Kari Wilder. That was huge. I mean, you saw him do at the Rivals Challenge. I mean, he was really good. That was one that Ohio State got in on late. They didn't even offer him a scholarship till May. They get him on an official visit approximately a month later, and then a little after that, he commits. That was a heck of a job by Larry Johnson. And now he's blowing up. So, they've got a really good one there. It's just that they haven't been able to get quite as many guys on the edge as they wanted. And, if you look at the remaining guys on the board, and I saw somebody ask about KJ Ford, if you look at the remaining guys on the board that have already made official visits to Ohio State, there aren't many left. KJ Ford is really the guy. Deuce Gerald's is a little bit more of an interior guy. So, pure edge type guys, it's KJ Ford right now. But Ohio, it's not over. There's going to be coaching changes, and I'm pretty sure that any coaching changes are not going to happen at Ohio State at the top. In fact, I'm extremely confident of that. But there's going to be coaching changes. There are going to be guys that are going to flip at the end, and there are going to be guys that Ohio State tries to flip. And then after that, you've got the transfer portal. And may I bring up a certain defensive end in the transfer portal, Bo Atkinson, that Ohio State got. That was a great one. They also got Logan George, by the way. So there's a lot of avenues out there still that Ohio State can and probably will at some point to eventually use. So the sky is not falling. It's just that, the defensive end recruiting still needs to be addressed because they don't want to have just Kari Wilder heading to Ohio State next season.
Okay,
as good as he is, I might add.
We're going to hit that in detail here in just a sec. But if you need a snack before that, or you're getting hungry, summer's here. More sun, more light, more time to do all things that make summer special, unless you live in the Gem City where it is literally effing gray like it's your job. I don't know. I'm going to handle it. I'm going to eat well, though, because Factor Meals is here, another one of our tremendous sponsors. These meals arrive fresh and ready to eat. 2 minutes in the microwave. Not my hair. Perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. 45 weekly menu options. If you're a calorie smart, a protein plus, a keto, you can power your day sun up to sundown, breakfast, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. As I've told you, my kids the other day said, "Dad, what's up with Factor Meals?" And I said, "Son, let me call the advertiser. Get started at factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off and use code bucknuts50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code bucknuts50 off at factormeals.com/bucknuts50 off. They know they've got a good product, so that deal is great, and they got their hook in you. All right, Bill, how much of this is simply related to NIL? How much of it is guys choosing a better option for football?
It's definitely both. I mean, NIL is absolutely a factor. It just, to what factor depends on what recruit, but absolutely a factor. I mean, I think you saw kind of a good look at that. And, Sincere Johnson, he's one of the top linebackers in the country, but you never really had any worry that at the end he was going to change his mind NIL wise. I mean, that wasn't going to happen. He was locked in with Ohio State. Luke Waif, on the other hand, that was a whole different situation in NIL at the end. So it depends on the recruit. There's so much talk now about, is Ohio State handling NIL wrong with the House settlement and all. I will say this about that. Ohio State, if they aren't taking the perfect approach now, they always, and again, I say if, they always seem to adapt extremely well. They figure out, all right, this is the way it's going, and they adapt to it, and they do it extremely well. If you remember right at the very beginning of NIL, everybody was complaining about, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were complaining about how Ohio State was handling NIL. They adapted very, very well. They adapted with keeping the guys on the roster at home extremely well. And then they also have been able to pluck guys from schools that fit needs through the transfer portal. So they adapted to the transfer portal extremely well when people initially thought they were not necessarily handling good. So let's give this a little time before we make any judgments and let things shake out, because we don't know exactly how this is going to shake out. When the transfer portal came out, remember, right, Urban Meyer said it's going to be 5 years till that settles down at least a little bit. And with this House settlement, it's going to take a little time for that to settle down and see how it all works out.
What's your vibe on the whole deal right now, Mark?
I like what Bill said about the NIL being players. Some of them really go for it sincere. It really didn't have a factor. And we really can't, prognosticate the way we used to, because, we're not privy to the numbers. And it isn't so much about like, hey, here's what the depth chart is at Ohio State. They have a couple of defensive ends are graduating, so there's an opportunity next year. Common logic like that is out the window. I also like how Bill said, doesn't Ohio State always seem to adapt to everything, wonderfully? And, I wish we had access to those staff meetings when they're all sitting around the room spitballing like kind of we are now. How do we handle this? Do we offer, what approach do we take to this House bill? And do we still keep offering funny money when we know that's going to maybe end up looking bad in the future, and we're going to end up lying to our recruits, promising kids things we can't deliver on? I think Ohio State has always been a classy institution. And if you want to know what direction they're going to go in, just think of the classiest way to handle the situation. It's maybe not the most fun way, and it's maybe not the throwing money at the wall to see what sticks way, but they always handle it where, there's respect and there's class. And it reminds me of how an NFL franchise runs. Like the ownership on the way down sends that message throughout the building that we handle ourselves professionally as things change and new, ideas pop up, so to speak. Because there are schools that haven't handled NIL with class, right? That have just said, hey, we're going to spend it on whoever. We don't care about character as much. We just care about talent, and money is number one, which that's not a real classy way to go usually.
Couple points, because I know you guys love it when I talk over my guys. One, and this is possibly the most important, we are not recruiting finished products, okay? You're not getting guys at 18 who come here and just do what they've done. These players, must be developed. You have to have the culture, the consistency, the track record to show these guys what you can do. And I keep saying this, and this has not changed. The guys that come to Ohio State, buy in, and never leave are rich. All of them. Okay. The number one example of this, I'll keep going back to it, is Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, I'm not sure he ever started here, really. He left. I thought he was going to be a great gunner. He's holding out for $30 million a year, okay? And he's not starting at zero. You're talking about the best of the best trying to get set up for their career. This is sure. I don't care what anyone tells me at Ohio State, the NIL for most people, and I air quote most, is short money. As much as Jeremiah has now, he's going to have a lot more. Trust me on this. Go look at recent contracts for people of similar ilk. So those guys are motivated by that. Now, the other thing is track record. Much of this, in my opinion, angst-wise, is simply because we haven't beaten Michigan in a few years. Because I'm pretty sure Ohio State won the national championship, and it was a gauntlet that no other team will likely ever have to face. So, in terms of achievement and waiting for things to work out, I'm not sure I could work out much better than that. The third is routine. And that is, and I'm like this too, you know that feeling you get, like I tell my family, my brain works on the school schedule, not the year schedule. About this time of year, this is when we start complaining about recruiting. Your brain is sliding into a circadian rhythm. I have no idea if that's medically accurate. It sounded good. Chill out. That's what I would say, and be positive. On some level, I get that we haven't gotten the next theoretical Bosa brother, but I just have a hard time getting too psyched up about this. Simply because nothing's really changed. If anything, Ohio State has more avenues to get out of this. Buck Rational. I would say every team moving forward will have to run the gauntlet. It's going to be awesome football. Yes, but keep in mind the seeding is going to be a little bit different now. So you're not going to have to keep in mind Ohio State was very close to getting the Penn State run, which who'd they beat again? Notre Dame, and then who? So interesting. I'm not even going to get into this one, the Larry's age and retirement thing. And I'll say it again. That was the recruiting angle 12 years ago. Every single person who used that angle is no longer in that job, is retired, and doesn't have 2 titles to their name. Okay. This is how you know you have we're now getting a lesson in circadian rhythms, biochemistry, and recruiting. All right. Let's talk recruiting, Bill, in terms of now. With the official visit season's over. Now it's kind of like deal closure and new names. Believe it or not, I saw, it was another network, and I rarely do this, but it caused me a chuckle, and you guys can weigh in on this. Flip Watch. They had Jir Brown on Flip Watch. Jir Brown goes to Wayne. He's from Ohio. He's very fast. He's the number 1 rated receiver in his class. That would lead to one to believe he's not a flip candidate. And I haven't even gotten into the fact that he has a tattoo of the good guys. Bill, any legs to the vibe that Jir Brown could be looking elsewhere?
Well, that really started, and I don't know what network has that or where you saw that exactly, and not really concerned about where that is. But it started when he made that visit to Notre Dame and, Marcus Freeman and the connection there and all. Jir Brown sure loves Ohio State is all I'll say. Could a kid get offered something that he can't turn down? As I said many times, as soon as I heard that Trey McNutt offer, I said he can't turn that down, and he didn't. It's, can that happen? Sure. But I will say that, again, Jir Brown sure loves Ohio State a lot.
Any word on the trail about that, Mark? That would surprise me intensely.
I know there's not a better wide receiver coach in the country with the lineage of all these first-round draft picks. There's no better place to go. The only thing that disrupts it is some crazy amount of money where you're making more than Brian Hartline and Ryan Day all of a sudden. There's just I don't know how much funny money is left out there before this House bill goes, but that's the only rational way to pull these kids away. Bill has the tea leaves right. This kid's been Ohio State since day one, and he's locked in. I think this industry is in need of lists like that, and I think it brings clicks, and I think that's maybe more clickbait than real bait.
That would shock me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Dan always talks like it's 2007, 2008. We just lost LSU, and they had a good defensive tackle. It's year 1. Go check where all the first-round defensive tackles are from the last 10 years. I will do that. 17 years behind. I got to catch up. Let's talk about this. Bill. Is there a chance we see a run on other positions? And I bring that up because there is a commitment coming in the very near future from a quarterback. And God forbid if people don't get fired up about wide receivers on here. The last thing we need is another super talented quarterback. However, I would tend to disagree with that. Bill, your thoughts on the impending commitment of California quarterback Luke Fehee?
Well, there's two announcements on the schedule right now for this week, Ohio State related announcements.
Right on.
That being Luke Fehee, July 3rd, and then offensive tackle Felix Ojo on July 4th. Keeping all us recruiting people working on the 4th of July, I might add. Better than Christmas, though, I guess. And that
happened before, Bill.
Yep. And Fehee, he made official visits to Ohio State, Indiana, Stanford, and Oklahoma State. As soon as he got that Ohio State visit scheduled, I'm not going to say it was written in ink that he was going to Ohio State, but the tea leaves started looking good. The kid likes Ohio State a lot. He's been a Buckeye fan for a long time. Ohio State has the tremendous track record at quarterback. And then he had a great Ohio State official visit. And I did, not long after that, crystal ball Luke to Ohio State. And I still like that pick. He is announcing on July 3rd. And the other school that was considered a front runner, Indiana, got a commitment from a quarterback. So, all the tea leaves are pointing to Ohio State. We will see when he announces his decision on July 3rd. But again, I haven't found any reason at this point to change my crystal ball from Ohio State on Luke Fehee. And by the way, he's a 4-star quarterback. People a little bit concerned, he's only 6 foot 6'1", maybe. He's still darn good.
That's not we're not the Broncos. You know what I'm saying? He's perfectly good size to play here. And just go. I would encourage everyone to go watch his tape. He's a very good quarterback. We'll have video of him eventually. I think here's a question from Eugene Pierce, or maybe it's a statement. Doesn't a team like Ohio State, who is recruiting at such a high level, realize a saturation point where 4 or 5 stars will go elsewhere because they know they will start somewhere else immediately? Mark, thoughts? Bill, thoughts?
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's a great point. And, again, I get back to you can't just stack 4-star guys and 5-star guys on top of each other at the same position. They'll leave if they don't play after a year or two. You've got to have some 4 or 5-star guys, and then you got to have some developmental guys that understand it's going to take me a couple years. I'm not leaving after a year or two. It's going to take me a couple years of development, and then I'm going to shine. BP Miller. I talked to BP again this summer, High State's camps. He said it's been a whole new game. It's going well, but he's got a lot to learn. And if he's not on the field in a year or two, he's not leaving. He knows that it's down the road. His time will come to shine.
I have feelings on this, and this is like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Dan and I have had this discussion before. I'm of the contention that a 5-star athlete, no matter where he goes, will probably end up in the NFL. Those players are that good. Unless they start doing drugs or get mixed up with women and they stay in the weight room, you have the privilege as a school to develop them. They've honored you with their presence. Ohio State gets a lot of those kids. And to the point here, like when those type of kids find out that, hey, there's a bunch of 5-stars in my position and it may take me 2 or 3 years, they want on the field sooner. And I always wondered, like, do they get more development at Ohio State? Is there more of a push in that weight room where you eke out another 5% or 8% because the competition at Ohio State is so great? Or is your natural God-given talent superseding all of that where, man, I just wake up in the morning and I'm great. It doesn't matter if I wake up in Texas, Florida, or at Ohio State. I'm going to be great. And we act like our weight room is better than Texas's weight room or Florida's weight room or Purdue's weight room or even a MAC weight room, or, and what we do in there is somehow special extra sets. I'd like to debate that point, like that. What comes first, the talent or the development in college? It's not like these other schools can't develop players now. Is getting on the field sooner help your development, or does sitting behind a few guys waiting your turn? These are discussions that I don't think there's ever a true definitive, like black and white answer in a textbook where, yes, look at the studies. They say this, So we always wonder this, like, hey, this kid's Ohio State good, but he chose another place. Does that mean he's now a 7th rounder instead of a 2nd rounder? So I could go on forever at this point. But as you guys were talking, I'm like, boy, you hit a nerve with me, because as a scout, I look at the same way in high school. Like St. Ignatius just takes players from other schools, and all of a sudden they're really good and develop there, and they do an unbelievable job of developing. But would those players have been scholarship players if they just hung it out at the schools they were at? So even in high school, as an evaluator, I see a kid and I'm like, man, this kid at Malvern, Ohio, Division 7 is really good. If he was over at Camp McKinley, would he have the hype he deserves? And I think that's the continual argument, because we see the NFL draft, the first 32 picks are in Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. So what went wrong? That almost proves my theory. Like, hey, if you guys were getting all the best, and it turned out in 3 years, the first round would be, and it usually is predominantly one of those teams. They all have a year and they make that point, but it's not a complete annual continual thing. You always see a scattering of the rest of the universe in those first 2 rounds.
And you've got Cincinnati Moeller at the other end of the state in developing guys. Like they have Khalil Johnson now, the offensive tackle. Yeah. Watch him.
He had an Ohio State offer at Taft, and he would have been a great player there. But now at Moeller with Patrick O'Brien on the other side, who's another elite tackle, do they push each other? Like I said, is it a 5 or 8% bump to be at a bigger, better program? What is the tangible difference that we could actually, say, hey, it is a 5% bump. It is a 20% bump, or it's really, up to the individual.
So my question would be this: when we say development, what does that mean? Develop for what?
That's what I'm spitballing about. Like, is natural development just going to happen over those 3 years because you're in a weight room, or is there some special thing at these bigger programs where, hey, iron sharpens iron, and it really does. I'm going against Jeremiah Smith every day. I'm ready for everything. I'm ready for anybody you throw at me because of what I've seen at Ohio State. But if you came from Tulane or San Jose State or something, I may have the same talent as the Ohio State kid, but I haven't seen that every day in practice, and I rarely see it in games. So, like I said, I was trying to put a number like 7% better. Exact same talent goes to Tulane, exact same 40-time shuttle height weight goes to Ohio State. Who gets drafted higher in a couple of years? It's a complex question with so many different intangibles that it's meant for podcasts like this and guys like us to debate it.
If you ask me, the one thing I hear, to have to name one single thing I hear most often when I talk to a recruit after an Ohio State official visit, probably the single word I hear most often from recruits after that Ohio State official visit is that Ohio State hit on and they were impressed by, or whatever, development.
What I'm saying is, I think that's a code word for getting me paid in the NFL.
Yep.
When I say development, you mean results. The development process is to produce a result. Okay. If you can consistently develop guys who are super talented, and we've always heard like, developing, it is just as hard to take a 5-star and develop them further than it is to build raw clay. Mark would probably tell you those last few levels, the last level of technique, talent, and expertise, those are the hardest mountains to climb. And I'll say this, and this holds true for most sports. Thank you. Results. And that's, as the father of 2 fledgling athletes, Results focused, process obsessed. You're never going to get there. That's the whole point. You're not going to get there theoretically because there's no perfection. It's the idea of how you approach everything and how you get after it. There are a lot of guys, and you will hear, go talk, get a couple drinks in a former Buckeye and ask him to tell you a story about the super highly recruited guy you went against in practice that lacked stones. It's a litmus test out there, man. And as Dee said, this is a fact. If your child, I know I'm, like I said, I'm about to do a disclaimer on every show that I'm not actually employed by the Sanchez family, but this is a real world example in your face. If you're arguing against this, you better have some good knowledge that I don't know about. Go ahead, Mark.
I think there's a case study in Ohio, like similar to this, that we can watch over the next couple of years.
Okay.
Adam Guthrie, Sam Greer. Okay, both pretty well developed. The guy we didn't talk about was Ben Cottigan. Dan or Bill, remember him from Tuskegee Valley? Yeah. He's going to Miami of Florida.
Yep.
He was thought of as the same body type, same thing, but at a school, D7, where weight room, guys pushing him in practice, came to the Ohio State camp, wasn't as polished. You saw the difference by going to a Hoban and maybe Miami Trace being developed at places that, could develop you into a better player. Now, the next part of this will Miami of Florida in 3 or 4 years have Ben Cottigan getting drafted anywhere near where Sam Greer or Adam Guthrie at Clemson get drafted? Because right now he is distinctly in third place by a lot of evaluators in Ohio. But is it because his development was stunted by going to a smaller program in Ohio? We'll watch that play out.
Hollywood Hager, my hooping buddy. I've been coaching and training high-level hoopers for 4 decades. It's the player and his work ethic. All right, just my opinion here, and then you guys can comment on this. But so you have your God-given talent and everything like this, and then there's this other circle. So we use the term pie chart in this family. So you got your pie chart of talent, and then your pie chart of everything else, the intangibles, the attitude, the work ethic. Your talent gets shined through that. Believe me, there are plenty of guys who are tied at 18 that aren't tied at 23, okay? And everyone's going to grow differently and stuff like that. But one thing about the pros and about college sports, talent eventually somewhat flattens out. The best players all reach the top. Well, once talent is no longer the number one determining factor, and I get it, there's different levels of football, but in general, we're talking about these elite teams. The talent level isn't the difference. It is the culture. It is the stick-to-itiveness, as Clark Kellogg would say. It's everything else you're shining through that second prism. So when you read about the NFL draft and the pundits and stuff like that, they're not getting to do those interviews or stuff, so they don't know how to shine it through the prism. We're just guessing on what we see on tape, right? Now, we've gotten to learn from the Sanchez's some insight into there that Devin was like this super motivated, came from a great house prospect. We don't know that about these other guys. Do you know how many things can throw you off the scent when you get to college? I mean, wine, women, and song has taken down many a football player. Do you think the guys at these major schools struggle socially? What I am most impressed about Ohio State, and this is going to sound corny, is freshman year is the beginning. It's not a destination. It's the result you're going for. The guys who their destination is that check for the first time in, you just can't convince me that the guys who, are looking to get drafted in the first round have similar work ethic, approach type stuff. Am I seeing this too black and white? Do you guys agree? And then I'll let you guys go.
I think that's, you put that through a prism where as I was listening to it, it was described to me in a different way, where it resonated with me in a different way, where I agreed with everything you said. And that's why I think I want to back up. That's why I have the opinion I do, is I don't know how that prism always shines. You could be in Missouri and have a chip on your shoulder and want to MF, Ohio State, Michigan, and all the schools that passed them. You see the guys that get drafted. I know every quarterback drafted in front of me. That type of chip on your shoulder can come at Ohio State, and it will serve you well there. But it's not exclusive to Ohio State. It's not exclusive to D1. It's not exclusive to FCS. There's kids that come out of D2 programs who I have this chip in it, and I don't need Mickey Mariotti to motivate me every morning, and I don't need Ryan Day's speech every day, and I don't need 100 other Buckeyes pushing me. I am intrinsically motivated by myself. And as a scout, I don't know who those players are. I don't know what of the top 200 players in Ohio. I can't tell you the 10 that are going to work like that and have that chip. And I think that's why I worry about how do we miss so much? How do we say so many kids are Ohio State good, and then they never see the field and never see the draft? And then how do we say, oh, this kid's a MAC kid and he just can't run or he doesn't have the height? And then 2 years later, you see the MAC kid at Toledo running 4.3 and getting drafted in the first round. And you're like, how did we miss that? How did Ohio State, out of all their camps and all the times they went through that school, never know? And that story repeats. And we all have them. So I think Dan's right. The prism of, your work ethic, your talent, and as your talent goes through that bubble, how do you come out the other side? And yeah, I think you really said it. And I think as a scout, I strive and try not to blow hype up people's butts and watch all these prospects and Buckeye and the sky it to death, where every time Mark's talking, he just sunshine and rainbows. He won't tell us anything bad. I'm trying to be the guy that can kind of see through the tea leaves, but guys, it's hard. It really is a hard business.
Bill, finishing thoughts?
I'm not sure I could add too much more to either one of those things. And I will say one thing, Mark talked about, which of the 10 guys out of the top 200, you don't know, but I will say that one name in particular I might put out there that I think is going to fulfill that. Sam Greer. And I say that because I've had more than one person I really trust when it comes to offensive linemen tell me this kid is going to work, is going to put the work in. And we all know he's got the physical, everything physically. He's a great basketball player, all that stuff side, but that he's got the work ethic too. So I'll put him out there as a guy that's going to get that done and has that drive.
If I don't work for the Sanchez's, I may have to get a gig with the Greers because I've been on this guy's fan bandwagon since I saw him play basketball and win the state title at Hoban as a freshman. He's got sweet feet, great coordination. And I'll just leave you guys with this. As anyone who's ever been in charge of anything, recruiting and dealing with human beings is not an exact science. And I just go back to, I got a buddy who was a NBA scout, and he said, this is basically what they say to you. Do not draft the outlier. But if you miss on the outlier, you're fired. Okay? It's human beings, man. There's only so much you can do. Luckily, look at these two human beings you got to deal with today. 47 minutes. This may be a record, and I'm not even going to charge you guys extra.
48 now.
The dean will. He's charging me to the minute. He's like a legal guy. 1 minute for the dean. It's like great career legal advice from another. We appreciate our guy stopping by. Have a good one. Nutters of Buck.